Good morning. Let me see. Good morning. So I'm gonna start up again. And I've chosen a book by Vimala Thakar. I'd like to continue reading some of her uh, beautiful wisdom. And the book is called Exploring Freedom. So here we go. Exploring freedom. The benediction of life. I wonder if we have ever looked into the issue of what it means to be religious. To be religious, one must be totally committed to the totality of life and living. One does not select certain agreeable aspects of life and try to escape from other aspects that are not agreeable. One who can meet life choicelessly is committed to the totality of it. Let us examine this totality of life and how one lives in relation to it. Totality is not an abstraction, not a theory deduced from certain principles or tenets. It is reality. Unless one has a true perspective of the totality, it is not possible to live in relation to it. The perception of life begins with the visible and the known, which we reach out to through the senses. We see through the eyes and we feel a presence. We hear sounds, words, and through audible perception gain the feeling of existence. We smell, we touch, and taste. So our first contact with life is through the sense organs. This visible world and its mysteries have been probed by mankind, so that much of the known is related to the visible, the tangible, and so on. And while this may not be the foundation of the totality, it is an organic part of it. Therefore, the visible cannot be neglected nor ignored if one is interested in living. The sense organs must have the energy to relate to the visible, health and pliability, so that they can sense clearly. It is very difficult to see anything as it is without the subjective reaction of preferences and prejudices that we have been accumulating all our lives, contaminating the process of perception. Religion concerns itself with the health of the physical body so that the senses are not clouded. It is a joy to have a body vibrant with vigor and vitality, and so be able to see things objectively. A non subjective perception is the foundation of a religious life. Behind the world that we see with our senses, there seems to be an invisible world, which is another aspect of the totality. One can see water flowing in a river, lying placidly in a lake, or in turbulent waves on the breast of an ocean. Yet electricity, which is derived from the energy in water, cannot be seen. You can feel the coolness of water and the speed with which it flows on the riverbed. You can see and feel its gentleness, yet the energy in water, even in the earth, is not visible. This invisible aspect of totality is beyond the reach of the sense organs, yet it is reached through the brain. Therefore, perception takes place through the brain and not through our physical eyes. The invisible is still known, it is not unknown. Much of it has been discovered, analyzed, and put into different categories by mankind. You and I contain the knowledge and experiences of our family and country, and, surprisingly, carry in ourselves the totality of human knowledge and experience. We may not be aware of the contents of our consciousness, but the known is contained in the consciousness, the mind. It is a conditioned energy contained in our whole being, so the brain sees and feels the invisible. There is a perceptive sensitivity in consciousness which contacts the known part of the invisible, perhaps the unknown parts of the invisible also. As there is perception through the sense organs, there can be perception through the mind, which is conditioned energy containing the languages, philosophies, sciences, everything that mankind has undertaken in bygone centuries. When one friend looks at another, or a mother looks at her child, a wife at a husband, they can see and feel the love which is transmitted in a subtle way. Nothing happens on the gross physical level, but love emanates through the glance and the other feels and perceives it. Hatred and anger can also be seen and felt that way. The energies contained in the universe and in oneself can be felt similarly. Is the perception and contact of the invisible possible through this conditioned energy, which we call the individual mind? However, the totality of life is not limited by the known or even by the unknown. The unknown is only that part of life which is yet to be discovered and analyzed, which is still not available to the brain through the senses. Beyond that unknown, beyond the invisible, there seems to be vast life in the cosmos. This is the unknowable infinite, which cannot be reached through the brain. The known, the unknown, and the unknowable, the visible, invisible, and the infinite, together constitute the totality. It is possible for a human being to be in contact with these three aspects simultaneously. This is the beauty of being born in the human body, which has this immense potential. To be religious is to be so equipped that one can be in touch with different dimensions of life simultaneously and live with them in harmony. This is the great challenge because life is for living. It has no purpose outside the act of living, which is perception, contact, and relationship. How do we relate to what is perceived and what is contacted? Our first sensual contact with reality makes us aware that there is constant movement around us, in the earth and the sky, the solar system, the mountains, the rivers and the seas, the volcanoes, in the cycle of the seasons and the process of birth, growth, decay, and death. We are surrounded by an ocean of movement, of immense variety, by innumerable energies acting and interacting with one another. We ourselves are part of the cosmic dance of energy, so we must learn to move with the movement of life and merge with the cosmos. It would be easy to learn this if there were only movement, but the difficulty arises when we notice that along with this incessant motion and movement, there is another dimension in life, which is motion free, stillness. Motion and motionlessness, stillness and movement together constitute perhaps the wholeness of life. When there is no wind or breeze dancing through the branches of the trees, and there are no clouds in the skies, have you watched the stillness in the evening or early dawn, when everything is still, and when you come to a place like Tahara and you feel an intense and deep peace? Tahara is where she is giving this series of talks, which is on the North Island of New Zealand. So in the early morning dawn, where the stillness of the evening, you can feel an intense and deep peace. This peace, this motion freeness, seems to be as equally an important dimension of life as movement is. So one may have to learn how to be free of all movement and commune with the stillness in the universe. There are now two things one has to discover in order to live in relationship with life: to be able to move when movement is warranted, and to be relaxed in motion free stillness when it is not warranted. Speech is movement necessary for communication, for sharing. One has to learn to speak, and one has to learn to be in silence. Sound and sound-free silence are dimensions of life. We spend so much of our vital energy in speaking. It is a most positive action to relax into uninhibited silence, to the emptiness within. Yes, life is thrilling. You open your eyes at dawn and you find the gift of another 24 hours with the whole universe to meet. It is an adventure to live, to meet the pain and the pleasure, the beauty and the ugliness, to encounter humiliation and honors and live through them without being contaminated by any of it. In order that one may move with the movements of life, one has to be free, completely, inwardly. Life is for living, and living implies learning. Learning keeps you fresh. Knowledge, acquired knowledge, makes you still. Another aspect of life is its functional human relationship. You're born in a family, in the midst of a network of relationships father, mother, sister, brothers. When you grow up, probably also wife or husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, and many more. This is one dimension. To live with another person without damaging that individual's freedom or succumbing to domination. Mankind has to learn to live with others in freedom, equality, love, and cooperation. As these functional relationships are an aspect of life, there's also the dimension of solitude. One is not talking about loneliness, as when your partner dies or you move out of your family. There is a sense of being deprived in that loneliness and desire not to be alone. The aloneness of solitude is when you enjoy being alone with life, and in that you are fulfilled. So, solitude and relationship, silence and speech, movement and stillness are not contradictory, for together they constitute the composite wholeness of life, like birth and death. We have looked at the wholeness of life from the perspectives of the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknown, the infinite and the unknowable. And we have looked at relationship, solitude, speech, silence, motion, and motion freeness, in the midst of which one has to live. We begin our self education with the act of perception. Do we know how to look, how to perceive non subjectively? Have we ever made the effort to look at something without becoming absorbed by it? As happens sometimes when you forget yourself in the beauty of a lake and clouds or birds on the wing. It is very easy to lose oneself in the beauty of music, nature, human beings, or thoughts, feelings, and emotions. One can become very sentimental in subjective reactions to these things and lose the capacity to perceive and have communion with them. It is worth observing what happens to us while we look or listen. Is there a non subjective action, a communion? If one notices that subjective preferences, prejudices, or emotions obstruct perception, one becomes aware of the nature of those obstacles. They cannot be put aside physically, but as you become aware of them, awareness will operate upon the process of perception. That is why it is necessary to learn and equip oneself with all these capacities before we discuss the problems of fear, jealousy, violence, and other emotions. Unless the foundation is laid, unless perception of the totality is there, unless the mind is willing and the senses equipped, it is useless to talk about the problems of the world and of peace and brotherhood. Is anyone capable of living in relationship with life? Unless there are such people, these problems cannot be discussed except academically or theoretically, or perhaps as an escape from the issue of religious life. There are so many problems on the fringes of collective life, essentially because we are not equipped for life. We are wreaking havoc with things. There is a mess in personal life which spreads through our relationships and becomes a social, national, even international mess. In the next chapters, we shall look at individual life. Is living an end in itself for us, or is it a means to an end? A means to breach the heavens, a means to attain transformation, to arrive at liberation or enlightenment? Is it that? Or is it something very sacred, every moment important for itself? One can see that for the majority of mankind, life is a means to an end, earning money, owning property and a bank account, to get married, to raise a family, living with a boyfriend or girlfriend, to have pleasure, to have security. So the body, the brain, and the mind are all instruments for obtaining those things, those economic powers. Life is not sacred for them. It is not a benediction for them to be alive. They do not feel the sanctity of the life of the universe, the cosmos. They use the days and the weeks, the hours and minutes as one spends money for gaining pleasure and security. Most people are not interested in talk of spirituality, of learning, purifying perception, and equipping the senses. They say, what nonsense! Why bother about these things? Go to school, have a degree, have a job, enter a business, television, videos, alcohol, dancing, music, sex, weapons, wars. That is life for them. So a sustained seriousness is required to live a religious life and to feel concern about the quality of one's actions, feelings, and thoughts. It is always a minority that feels this concern. So I think till so far, this beautiful beginning of this book, Exploring Freedom from Vimala Thakar. I wish you a really good day and maybe see you tomorrow. Bye for now.